the issue of Musto argues, for example, that the real issue here was an economic issue. These people coming in, taking the jobs, looking so different, they've got different practices, different behaviours. Let's zero in on those behaviours, and then we can come up with some reasons why we can develop some legislation to control them, because we might be looking after their health, but the reality is that we wanted to control them for other purposes. And so you have these race riots and lynchings and so on. But increasingly also the idea that while it was Chinese who initially were smoking opium, this broadened out to include non-Chinese, and particularly when the Americans were concerned, you know, white women. Can't have these white women cohabiting with Chinese. Stop that business right now. And so we have here a couple of examples. The first is from the opium problem is an academic work looking at the issue, and the second one is the State Department official just commenting, like, anecdotally, and dressing it up as well. These are, you know, we know this. We know that there are these issues going on. We have to do something about it. This is something that's undermining our culture. So there's this whole notion of this kind of cultural collision here of these different cultural practices. So the same here in association with so-called Negroes or Afro-Americans. Just really gratuitous. You know, I mean, there's some of the quotes you read are just really, you know, really, really horrible sort of things that we would just sort of look at and go, oh God. You know,
those newspapers used to splash it across the front pages.
Yeah. For example.
It's hard to know whether they're demonising the drug or the people, isn't it?
Well, really, my argument would be that in a sense, of course, they're demonising both, but they're really demonising the people, you know, because these people were seen as a threat. And in the case of you know, the Afro-Americans, I mean, they were people of colour, I guess we'd say today. It's a minefield. There was the idea that they moved their calibre of police pistol revolver up from the 32 to the 38 because they had to. You know, these guys are sure hard to kill. You know, so when the cocaine fiend runs amok.
It's like not that different to what you read about P.
Is that right? Yeah, well, you're right, actually. Yeah, let's all go for our samurai swords. Yeah,
that's right. That's true. That is true.
I think this is a telling statistic, though, here. If we're looking over a 5-year period of admissions in Georgia, only 2 were for cocaine use, and this is in a mental health institution. So you know, either they didn't worry about anybody who's got these guys weren't getting to there because they got blown away by the 38 calibers or something like that, or it was very much an exaggerated phenomenon. And it was one, as you point out, Alan, was really, you know, demonising the people as much, and using and the means by which they did that was through the use, attributing the use of a drug to these people, and it wasn't. No one else was using it, except of course it's something like, you know, over 40 brands of soft drinks were using cocaine. So, you know, accusing these guys of going crazy on cocaine, they're all sitting there, excuse me. And the same with marijuana and Mexicans brought across the southern border by Mexican labourers. Initially not a problem, but when the economic times became harder, again the same scenario. You know, oh, they're smoking their local weed, those guys, and you know, we've got to sort of stop them doing it. And the marijuana, of course, received a shot in the arm, excuse the pun, or mixed metaphor, from the arrival of Hindu indentured labourers into the west coast of America in the 1900s, and of course the same scenario of these strange people with their strange practices using these strange drugs, and so this whole thing just gathered momentum. So there's an increasing awareness of danger and harm and risk, and at the same time a lack of legislation around what to do about this and how to control it. And so the stage was set in that sense. You've got this burgeoning use of addicting drugs, you've got lack of regulation, you've got a desire by these various medical and pharmacist bodies to have some sense of control, and there's popular awareness of drug use fueled by these stereotypical views that we've just been looking at, and this notion of otherness, the otherness of the drug user, the alienness of these people. So we now move on to the actual global drug control itself. It's been a while coming, but I think we need to build up to it. So there's two further factors that really added momentum to this process. There were the tensions between state and federal laws and controls. Now, in New Zealand, we don't really have much of a sense of this, but we've got a couple of guys from across the way there, and I don't know how you guys see this notion of the different states and so on, but the sense I get when reading through the various texts and so on is that there's this sense of, well, the states want to do, the individual states want to do what they want to do. They've got their own regulations, they've got their own taxes, etc. And yet you've got this overarching federal structure which says, well, no, we need to get something from you guys, and we need to know that we're all going to be on the same page. And this is very evident when it comes to looking at the cannabis laws. It becomes very evident there where we're thinking about the medical marijuana situation, where you've got a number of states, I think 13 now, that have decided that medical marijuana is acceptable. And yet, until just very recently, when the Obama administration has just made quite a significant change in terms of how the federal government deals with the state government. You know, I remember reading a report a few years ago when I was doing my thesis of it was a hospice in California where people were growing, they had a state license to grow cannabis, to make medicine, to use for these people, these terminally ill people. And at midnight, the federal, the DEA guys turn up, trash the place, and arrest these patients, these terminally ill people, some of whom were so ill they couldn't even get out of bed, and they were handcuffed to their beds. You know, and these are people who are dying, literally dying. But the state said it's cool, the federal government said it's not cool, and so there was this kind of tension that was going on, and it was much stronger back at the turn of the century, at the turn of last century. And the other issue is this economic interest, particularly around China, with the idea from America that there's a massive market here, particularly investing in railways and stuff like this. It's a fantastic opportunity to get on the ground floor. How can we do that? How can we engineer a scenario that looks like we're people that they might want to invest with? And of course there was all this connection, these connections with the Chinese in relation to the work that they were doing in America. Of course, you know, very difficult conditions and very poorly treated people. But the Americans felt, oh, maybe what we can do isn't opium a terrible thing? And we're really worried about it too. Why don't we have some opium laws? And that way we'll be seen as responsible people, caring people, and that will smooth the way for our investment into China. So we've got these federal tensions with relation to drug laws and also taxes. Numerous anti-opium, cocaine, patent medicine state laws, problems with different states having different laws, and the illegal distribution. Again, it comes back to this idea of, well, you know, what's the ethicality around prescribing and so on. Illegal distribution by corrupt physicians and problems collecting federal taxes, etc. And so basically a sort of corporate disregard for public welfare. So these issues were significant. And one of the things that the federal powers that be thought was, well, hang on, you know, if we have a set of laws that can be an umbrella, a set of drug laws that can be an umbrella over the state laws, then we can force the states to comply to the federal regime. Now, if that overarching set of laws are part of an international body of drug laws, then we're in. And so this was another one of the reasonings behind this, the idea that if we can have a global set of laws that deal with drug use, that deal with these various substances that we're concerned about, then we can force the states to play the game, the individual states to play the game.